Well, welcome to the FanDuel Punch Out. I'm Big Italy 42. He is at Boomers DFS Daddy on Twitter. Special guest for today, helping out, and we're going to be talking about tonight's slate, of course, and a lot of big pitchers on the mound, some big names, some big upside guys, but not a lot of them necessarily in great spots. So as we're looking at these top pitchers, you got Max Scherzer, $12,500, facing off against an Arizona team that obviously better against lefties than they are against righties. On the road, obviously a significant park downgrade. And at $12,500, though, it's pretty pricey. Of course, you've got a game in Coors Field, 10.5, 11-run total, wherever you look. So you're going to want to pay for some big bets. So for me, Scherzer's more of a GPP play due to his big price tag. And I actually like the pitcher on the other side. We'll get to in a minute. So what's your take on Scherzer? Is he cash game playable? You going GPP?
Yeah, he's pretty much GPP only for me. I just paying that price tag, especially with the Coors game in effect. It's not something that I'm going to be able to do because then you got to find a lot more value. And like you said, pitcher on the other side, I actually like a lot too. So Scherzer's kind of off limits unless it's a GPP.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And then Chris Sale, Chris Archer, battle of the Chris's tonight. Both those guys over $11,000. Obviously, we know the upside both these guys have. You're certainly not playing any hitters against them outside of GPPs. But at the same time, this one's a pretty close call, 6.5 run total here. And, you don't trust either offense to give run support. Chris Sale, a minus 130 favorite. So, once again, it begs the question, are you going to pay up for one of these guys where, you don't really trust either team to help them to the win? And obviously, if you're paying $11,000 plus for a pitcher, you want to be able to lock in those 4 points. So it's going to be tough to pay for either of these guys in cash games too, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely for me. They're both GPPs, and actually for me, Chris Sale might actually be completely off limits for me, just due to the fact that the Rays they have a 322 WOBA. With a 168 ISO versus left-handed pitching this year. So if I'm going in tournaments, then I'll probably have some exposure to some Rays in stacks. But I just for cash games, I think they're both off limits. 11-5 and not being able to be about as locked down for a win as you possibly can at that price tag, I think it's too much of a risk that I'm not willing to take tonight.
Yeah, and the Rays, I feel like a lot of people don't realize how much power they have against lefties because you don't look at that lineup and just see one individual power hitter, really. But top to bottom, they do some damage against lefties. So
yeah, especially since they're starting to get healthy now too. So
yeah, really good point. Next guy up is Jake Arrieta. He's a minus 125 favorite against Jay Happ making his Pittsburgh Pirates debut. So you like him because Pittsburgh has been an inconsistent offense. You got the guys at the top of the order, Polanco, Marte, McCutchen, Neil Walker, much better from the left side of the plate as well. I think, though, if I'm going to be paying up, I think that Arrieta is the only 10K plus guy I'd really feel good about in cash games because, a $2,300 difference between him and Scherzer is pretty substantial. And, Arrieta's a guy that can definitely pitch deep into games. Doing well with his strikeouts recently, 8+ in 3 of his last 4. So I think he's about the top tier of guys I'd pay for in cash tonight.
Yeah, he's the only one over 10K that I'm looking at. Taking weather out of the issue, I haven't looked at the weather. After last night, it kind of scares me just a little bit. But taking weather out of the issue, you're looking at those 4 pitchers over 10K, and Arrieta is the only one I'm willing to even consider for cash games. So
yep. A couple other guys that you and I are both looking at as far as cheaper options. Jimmy Nelson faces off against that Padres offense that I don't know how actively they tried to trade everyone, but I know everyone was pretty much on the table. But this is a bad offense right now. After all their offseason moves, they're really not any better of an offense than they were last year. Nelson's been pitching very well. You look at his last 4 starts, 15+ in 3 of 4, 13 in the other one, and some tough matchups at Arizona, at LA, the Dodgers, that is. And I think that at $7,600, I don't think he's a bad cash game play against a pretty weak Padres offense. Despite their explosion last night, this is not a consistent offensive team.
Yeah, they've been typically bad versus righties this year. And Nelson actually brings some higher K upside, especially at that price tag. I really, really like him. For cash games as well, I also like Alex Wood making his Dodgers debut going against Philly. I know Philly's been really good since the All-Star break, and they're not bad versus left-handed pitching. But you can't deny the fact that he's still almost a minus 200 favorite tonight. So,
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. And then a couple other guys to mention. We kind of hinted at this. Patrick Corbin, $7,000 against Washington. He's a big-time underdog, but that's going to happen when you're facing Max Scherzer unless you're anything but an elite pitcher. But you look at what he's done in his last couple starts. Corbin's been fantastic. 13 innings, only allowed 7 hits, 3 walks, 16 Ks. Obviously, not great offenses in there, but this is a Washington offense that, despite being almost healthy, still missing Denard Span, just has not been producing. Then you get Bryce Harper is going to be in a lefty-lefty matchup against him tonight. So I think at 7K, he's probably my favorite GPP option on the slate.
yeah, I'm going to go. I like him, but I'm going to go a different route as far as GPP. And my favorite, it's probably going to be John Neese going against that Miami offense. I know they hit lefties really well, but that was all with Giancarlo Stanton in the lineup. I'm not scared of anybody in that lineup, and the Mets have actually, I think, with the trades that they made, they've been rejuvenated a little bit. Yeah. So he's only a minus 117 favorite, but I still think in that big pitcher's ballpark, he could actually be very, very low owned and could end up stealing the win for you in GPP. So
yeah, I like that. I mean, almost a 55% ground ball rate. So he's a guy that doesn't strike out a lot of guys, but he's effective, doesn't give up a lot of hard contact. So I like that. Two more guys we'll just kind of mention in passing. Matt Shoemaker against the Indians. That lineup just awful right now. He's 7,600, and Andrew Cashner 7,200 against another lineup that actually made a conscious effort to trade away a lot of their best hitters. So you got to like him as well.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, catcher options. It's hard not to like Buster Posey because he is the best hitting catcher, but it's going to be really hard to pay for him at 4,700, really in any format tonight. So I don't mind you playing him, but at the same time, Shelby Miller is also very good against right-handed batters. So GPP only guy. The top-notch guy that I'm probably looking at here is Yasmani Grandal. He's been great from the left side of the plate. Jerome Williams, arguably, well, I don't know, maybe you want to argue with me. I think he's in consideration for worst starting pitcher in all of baseball. Worst consistent starter, I should say. But 3,400 for Grandal. Gotta like the Dodgers. He should be batting around 5th. I think he's got big-time upside tonight.
Yeah, Kyle Kendrick would have something to say about that worst start in baseball. So, yeah, I don't mind Grandal. I really like him. I like, obviously, Posey. He's going to be your top. He's just insane and sick, and it sickens me that the Giants are actually got him. So, yep. I don't mind Russell Martin tonight going against Phil Hughes. And Brian McCann going against Mr. Owens, getting his first taste of the Red Sox-Yankees rivalry. And he's there in Yankee Stadium again. He is 3,500. So if you're not going to pay up for Posey, then I can get Brian McCann at $1,200 cheaper. So
yeah, I like that. If you're looking for a cheap guy, assuming he's in the lineup, so obviously make sure because he may not be. Jesus Montero is only $2,300. It was a pretty chalky play last night if you were paying down. Near minimum salary, getting a piece of Coors Field, you got to like that. And then a couple other guys. Another guy, GPP play, of course, because he gets a bad lineup spot, but he's been one of the better hitters in the lineup. Jason Castro, $2,600. Last night, a double and a homer. He's got 3 homers in his last 4 games, 2 doubles in that span, too. So at that nice price tag, you got to like him. And then one more guy I'll throw out there. Really like the Toronto lineup, of course. And if Deoner Navarro's in there at $2,400, against a fly ball pitcher, I think he's a nice punt as well.
Yeah, and I'll throw one more guy out there. I'm not sure if you said this or not. Maybe I was clicking. But Victor Martinez is 2,600 going against Danny Duffy tonight. I think he's, as far as cash games, I think with his potential to go deep, I think you just slot him in and go to the next position. So
yeah, I mean, absolutely one of the better hitters in all of baseball when he's going, and $2,600 a crazy price tag for him.
Yeah, that's sick.
Yep. First base options, gotta like Mark Teixeira at home, $4,300. Of course, Edwin Encarnacion also if you're paying up. Might be hard to afford these type of guys, so I'm trying to save a little bit at first base. I like Joey Votto at $3,800. One of the more consistent hitters in all of baseball. He's patient. He gets on base. I mean, you look, he has in his last 10 games a 4-walk game, a 2-walk game, and 2 3-walk games. So even when he's not getting pitches to hit, he's productive for you in cash games. So
at least he's not getting you negative points.
Yeah. I mean, he rarely, if ever, gives you negative points. So definitely like him. And one more guy that I think is going to be pretty popular, of course, is Adrian Gonzalez at $3,300 against Jerome Williams, the punching bag.
Yeah, exactly. So if you want to go a little bit cheaper and still be able to get some pop, you're looking at Mike Napoli at $2,600. Kendry Morales is $29,000, and then Pedro Alvarez is $2,700. So I like all of their matchups tonight as well. So
yeah, and one more guy, he homered last night. Waited till he got to the bullpen though. Min salary, Ryan Zimmerman. You don't love him, but if you have to punt, I mean, he's a fine hitter, and he's min salary. So if that just works into your lineup, I don't mind that one.
Exactly. So
all right, second base options. Of course, Robbie Cano is going to be your chalk play in Coors Field. He's $4,300. Had a fine game last night, 5.25 points, had a double, 2 hits, couple RBIs. Other guys, you and I agree. We're talking before the show. Ben Zobrist, $4,000 against Justin Verlander. Justin Verlander looked like vintage Verlander in his last start. I'm not buying it. And Kansas City, a team, puts the ball in play. They don't strike out much. Zobrist has been one of the better hitting second basemen in all over the past month. I mean, he's been very consistent. So I'm a big fan of his as well.
Yeah, I think that's going to be one of your pivots off of Cano. Is going just saving a couple $100 going down to Ben Zobrist. I think a lot of people are going to go towards Howie Kendrick tonight, obviously going against Jerome Williams. But Brian Dozier and Ronald Odor right there at $3,500 and $3,600, I think are going to be overlooked, especially in GPP plays tonight. So.
Yeah, I like that. And 2 more cheap guys here. Scooter Gennett led off last night, hit a home run, 1 for 5. It was his only hit, actually, but min salary for him. Andrew Kashner's biggest weakness is lefties. Not a lot of lefties in that Milwaukee lineup, but if Scooter's leading off, you got to like him. And then, once again, Jimmy Paredes. You never know where he's going to bat. 2nd, 5th, 7th last night. But, I mean, at 2.4K, he's a fine punt also.
Yeah, I also like 2 more. I like Logan Forsythe. I know it's going against Chris Sale, but like I said, he just mashes left-handed pitching. He doesn't care who it is. And then Ryan Goings in that lineup, in that Toronto lineup. He's been productive. He had a home run yesterday. Nobody really remembers that because that was the afternoon game. But with the way that Blue Jays have constructed that lineup, putting Ben Revere and Ryan Goings at the 8 and 9 hole when Tulo's batting first, it gives them a lot of punch at the bottom of that lineup. And then you're going to get a lot of scored runs because you've got the big boppers there at the top 1 through 4 that are going to be able to drive them in. So
yeah, that's a good point. I mean, you if you get on base batting 9th, you get Tulowitzki and Donaldson right behind you. That's not a bad spot to be. You kind of just wait for him to hit the ball off the wall. And then
followed up by Bautista and Encarnacion. That's, my gosh, that's sick.
Yeah, that lineup is loaded. And speaking of how loaded that lineup is, Josh Donaldson, if you're paying up at third base, that's the guy I'm paying for. Fly ball pitcher, Phil Hughes. Yep. I'm not a believer in Phil Hughes. I am a believer in Josh Donaldson and his insane power. I mean, the guy just continues to mash the ball. So $5,000, you got to like him. Yep. Of course, Kyle Seager had an enormous game last night. 3 hits, a double, home run. Stole a base, too, for good measure. So
you're ripping out my heart.
Yeah, I mean, you as a Colorado fan don't like to hear it, but as a DFS player, you like
I love seeing it. Yep,
exactly. Manny Machado, the other guy, if I'm paying up that I like, at $4,200. He's really, really good, and righty-righty matchups, one of the better in the league, actually.
Yeah, there's 2 other ones up there at the top over 4K. I like Nolan Arenado. If I'm going to pivot off of Josh Donaldson, I'm going to get me some piece at Coors Field. I'm going to go to $4,800 against that. What we've kind of determined is going to be a bullpen game for the Seattle Mariners tonight. And then Alex Rodriguez is only $4,300, and he has surprisingly, I know he's a cheater and everything, but surprisingly, he's had a very, very, very good year and continues to produce in that lineup. So I like him, especially if Gardner and Ellsbury are getting on base and stealing bases and stuff. He's going to be able to drive those guys in.
Yeah, I like that. As far as a cheap guy with power, Luis Valbuena, $2,900 against Giovanni Gallardo.
Mm-hmm.
He actually has 3 multi-hit games in his last 4, so don't hold your breath expecting that again because he is not a good hitter, but he is a power hitter, so you got to like that. And then directly below him, Miguel Sano against another guy, Marco Estrada. We know the drill with him over his whole career. He strikes guys out and he gives up home runs, and that's pretty much all he does.
Yeah, exactly. I've got a couple more. If I'm going in that mid-tier option, I really like Matt Carpenter tonight going against DeSclafani. I also really, really, really like Daniel Murphy going against the hand of Brad tonight. So I know we're actually both shocked about this. Brad Hand hasn't allowed a home run this year, but I mean, Daniel Murphy, he's very, very good and very consistent this year. Or not consistent, but he's been very good as of late with that rejuvenated Mets offense. So,
yep, definitely a lot more opportunities now. They're adding another big bat there.
Yeah.
Shortstops, you know the drill here. Troy Tulowitzki, Carlos Correa, your top 2 options every night. Hopefully we didn't already need to tell you that. So if you're paying up, those are the guys you want. If not, Brandon Crawford's probably going to be a popular play. It's a much tougher matchup today. You're obviously not chasing a 2-homer game, but if Shelby Miller does have a weakness, it is against left-handed batters. Much better against righties. Still not bad against lefties. 317 WOBA allowed in the season, but Crawford, as we know, also better against lefties. So, I mean, take that for what you will. But if you're looking for a mid-tier guy, I think that he's the best hitter around that price.
Yeah, exactly. There's a couple more you can go to. Obviously you've got Kettle Marte. He hit leadoff last night. If he's back in the lineup, even if he's playing outfield with Robinson Cano playing second base again, you've got him at $3,500. Then Brad Miller is $3,000. That'll get you some exposure to Coors Field. Jose Reyes, I believe, is actually been very, very, very sneaky considering the fact that he's now playing for Colorado.
Yep.
People have kind of just overlooked him. And then if you go down a little bit to Alcides Escobar in that Kansas City lineup, I know he's only $2,200, but going against Verlander tonight, you've got to like that matchup. So
yeah, I like that a lot. And then a couple other cheap guys. You can look at Jimmy Rollins if you're trying to get your Dodgers stack. He's only $2,500. He's not a bad option. And then Eugenio Suarez at 24, I don't think is a bad punt either.
Yeah, exactly. So.
All right, outfield options. Nelson Cruz. You should have played Nelson Cruz yesterday. Hopefully you did. And you should be playing him again today. He's homered in 4 straight games, 6 of his last 9. 3-2, 2 and 4 hits in his last 4. I mean, he's probably the top overall hitter on tonight's slate. Again, it's going to be hard to argue with that. So if you're paying up, that's the guy you want. Jose Bautista, you got to like against fly ball pitcher Phil Hughes. I mean, he's been very hit or miss. Not a very consistent guy this year, but also not having a whole lot of batted ball success. So if that finally turns around for him, I mean, the guy's on base percentage is through the roof. I mean, he's walking a ton. So he's usually a pretty good cash game play, but at almost 5K, it's going to be, you're not going to pay for him in cash games tonight. But he certainly has big upside in tournaments.
No, if I'm paying $4,900, I need those. I need the RBIs and I need the home runs. So obviously Nelson Cruz, he's going to be your top player of the night in the outfield. Andre Ethier, I think, is going to be pretty popular because he's only $2,700. He's going against Jerome Williams. I mean, of course, I think we were talking about it. 2 sneaky options in GPPs. Going to be Cargo and Charlie Blackmon because they're starting off against a lefty and nobody they'll see lefties going against a lefty and they won't realize it. They won't do their research. And so you've got that lefty-lefty matchup. So if Weiss keeps them both in the lineup, which he should, then you've got that. And then obviously you've got Trumbo sitting there lurking, just haunting us at $2,200.
Yeah. And like we were saying earlier, it seems like it's going to be a bullpen game. Vidal Nuno, not a guy that you're expecting to pitch deep into this game. So
no,
you're going to see a righty at some point for these guys. So that's a good call. Lorenzo Cain, guy that I love playing in tournaments, $3,900. Mm-hmm. He does it all. Believe it or not, in Verlander, he does have reverse splits. Much better against lefties somehow than he is against righties. So you got to like that play. And then as you're looking at mid-tier guys, Yoenis Cespedes had an incredible performance in his first Mets game there. 3 doubles, 4 RBIs, $3,600. You got to like him against Brad Hand. Although Cespedes has not had good numbers against lefties this year, so take that for what you will. And then $3,500 Gerardo Parra, you always got to consider against a righty, especially if he's batting second again tonight.
Yeah, exactly. He's He's been one of those that have been absolutely just, especially with his new team, he could absolutely just kill it. He hits the ball in that gap out in Oakland, and he's just going to be running forever. A couple more I like. I really like Preston Tucker at $3,100 going against Barney Gallardo there in Texas. And then if you look a little bit, you've got Marlon Byrd going against John Lackey. A lot of people don't really understand this, but Marlon Byrd we know is a lefty crusher, and he's actually hit John Lackey very, very, very well over the course of his career. So I really like the Marlon Byrd play tonight. It didn't work out for us a couple weeks ago or last week, but I'll follow the numbers and I'll go back to that play again tonight.
Yeah, I like that call. And then, of course, Chris Young, your obligatory mention at $3,200 against the lefty. And Yasiel Puig, $2,800. I mean, you want to get some Dodgers against Jerome Williams. Maybe not the worst pitcher in all of baseball, but certainly the worst pitcher on tonight's slate. So he's the other target for me.
Exactly. And one last one. If I'm going to want to get a lot of exposure to this Yankees Red Sox game because they're always high scoring. It's the rivalry, one of the best in baseball. I'm going to go. I really like as a pivot off of Ellsbury or Gardner, Carlos Beltran. They're in the Yankees outfield. So
yeah, I like that call as well. And then min salary Brandon Moss if you're chasing some upside in Cincinnati. Got to like some left-handed power at Great American Ballpark tonight.
Absolutely.
All right, that's going to wrap things up. Thanks for hanging out with us. Find us on Twitter at DF Cafe. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. Check out all of our great content. And special thanks to you, Keith, for hanging out with us today. And we'll see you guys next time. Yeah, of course.